Welcome to another story made by Oracle One. In the heart of the Pacific Northwest stood Lumina City, a gleaming beacon of modernity and digital innovation. The city's pulse was its neural network, the central system orchestrating everything from power grids to traffic flow. The lifeblood of Lumina's brilliance was the Transport Nexus, an AI-driven traffic control center ensuring millions of residents commuted fluidly every day. Unknown to its citizens, however, that very system harbored an invisible menace waiting to unravel everything. It began on an overcast Thursday morning, the type where the mist clung luringly to the glossy skyscrapers. Commuters streamed through illuminated streets and smart crosswalks synced seamlessly with their autonomous vehicles. An eerie silence humbly nestled beneath the city's din as if the day knew something was off-kilter. Then, without warning, the transport nexus went dark. Swipe after swipe, digital signs blinked blank. Traffic lights froze mid-cycle. Autonomous cars halted abruptly on busy boulevards. The city stuttered to a halt. System anomaly detected, intoned analyst June Calder from the control room. She watched a sprawling 3D map of the city flicker erratically on her monitor. Her team scrambled, but every attempt to reboot the traffic AI resulted in chaotic outcomes. Worse yet, the central system had engaged an automatic reroute sequence, but directed all vehicles through what was labeled Zone 13 Delta on their schematics, a desolate sector at Lumina's edge known for derelict infrastructure and toxic chemical dumps from an old industrial plant closed decades ago. It was the so-called dead zone. The news rippled quickly through the city. Social media feeds exploded with warnings and desperate calls. Avoid Zone 13 Delta at all costs, experts advised, but vehicles continued to be funneled there. Panic gripped the population. Commuters boxed inside their frozen cars felt trapped in a flux of uncertainty and fear. Emergency services were tied up in traffic, unable to respond. The city's heartbeat faltered. June's eyes narrowed. This isn't a mere software bug. She circled the data logs again. Strangely, a sequence triggered by an unknown remote login had overridden priority routing protocols. The fingerprints were digital. A master key hack that no one but the city's own engineers or an insider could have executed. Who infiltrated the system, and why? Her team demanded. Meanwhile, across the city, private investigator Kai Ramos was finishing his morning coffee when his encrypted phone buzzed with an anonymous message. Dead zone. Traffic system. Find out who's behind this, or the city dies. The message was signed only with the symbol of an eye within a circuit, an emblem Kai recognized from a mysterious hacking collective he'd been tracking called the Oculus. Kai grabbed his coat and set out toward Zone 13 Delta, despite repeated warnings. He knew the route would be impassable, but he also understood that sometimes to solve a puzzle, you had to step inside the darkness. Outfitted with a portable signal jammer and an EMF field disruptor, he headed for the city's outer edge where the smart grids faded into silence. Arriving at the beginning of Zone 13 Delta, Kai saw the aftermath of the digital sabotage firsthand. Half a dozen driverless cars were haphazardly abandoned, their consoles flickering in blue emergency mode. The streets were cluttered with thick black sludge leaking from burst chemical containers long since sealed off but corroded by years of neglect. A toxic haze hung low, catching the dull gray sun in sickly yellows and greens. Kai's scanner picked up strange electromagnetic fluctuations, signatures that couldn't be natural. There was a signal jammer nearby, but it bore the faint traces of city frequency mingled with something alien, foreign. This was no ordinary hacker's trap. Back at Lumina's central control room, June fought on. Her face grim, she ran rapid diagnostics on the system's underlying architecture and discovered a buried kernel module embedded deep within the AI's operating code. It was a sophisticated implant, resembling a parasite that swallowed logic commands and spat out deceptive instructions to reroute the city's infrastructure into chaos. But the implant was also sending data back somewhere, to an unknown external server masked behind layers of proxies and cryptographic fog. "I need physical access to the traffic nexus core," June told her supervisor. "I believe someone has a mole deep inside the infrastructure. We need to cut off this feedback loop before the system falls apart completely." Orders shipped her and a small elite squad of technicians to the command center's underground vault beneath Lumina Tower. Across the city's darkened streets, Kai advanced cautiously. The smell of decay thickened with every step, and the faint buzz of dying circuitry tangled with the mechanical click of unseen drones above. His instincts screamed that the digital collapse was just the start. Someone planned something worse. Unexpectedly, his path crossed with a young woman crouching beside a bolted steel door nestled in a crumbling wall graffiti tagged with the Oculus symbol. She was wired into a cracked terminal rigged with patch cables snaking to a battered laptop. Her eyes flicked up, emerald green and blazing with defiance. "You're trespassing," she warned, voice steady despite the grim surroundings. "But maybe you can help." "Name's Kai. Who are you?" "Rain. I was part of the Oculus. I didn't want it to go this far, but someone radicalized the group. This hijack, it's not about protests or data leaks. It's about control." She gestured at the door behind her. "Inside here is the real hub controlling the traffic AI, off-grid. They're using it to reroute every move, every sensor, to herd people into traps. This dead zone? It's more than toxic. It's a map for their extraction operation, to capture specific citizens for unknown purposes." As Kai's skepticism wavered, a sudden explosion rocked the wall behind him. A squad of armored mercenaries closed in, advanced tactical gear glowing faintly in the dusk. "Guess we're running," Kai muttered, drawing a compact stun pistol. Together, he and Rain darted into a tangled maze of broken factories and forgotten power lines, the mercenaries' footsteps thudding relentlessly. They ducked beneath ruined conveyor belts and slipped past remnants of robotic arms once used in assembly lines, now rusted tombstones of industrial dreams. Eventually, they found shelter in an old warehouse where Rain connected her setup to an ancient command terminal still linked to the city nexus by a hidden optic fiber line. "This hub is the relay for the dead zones, soft zones," she explained, fingers flying over the touchscreen dimly illuminating broken machinery. "I'm tracing the feedback loop now." Suddenly, a holographic map flickered into existence, displaying the city with a matrix of streaming data paths. One node pulsed furiously near the municipal water treatment plant, decades ago rumored to be the site of clandestine operations during Lumina's early corporate wars. June and her team reached the control room's core just as the city's AI frantically transmitted warnings. "Emergency override needed," she barked. But an internal lockdown activated without apparent command, sealing their exit and shutting down instruments one by one. "We're locked in," whispered one tech. "It's a trap. Not if we can beat it from the inside," June snarled, pulling out a portable interface unit. Back in the warehouse, Rain's screen blinked red alarms. "It's activating a hard firewall. Whoever this is, they planned for counterattack." She looked at Kai, desperation clear in her voice. "If we shut down the hub, half the city might black out. But if we don't, we're sitting ducks." Kai nodded grimly. "Do it." With a few taps, Rain unleashed a virus crafted to corrupt the rogue module's routines. A pulsing shockwave of code rippled through the digital map, nodes blinking out in rapid sequence. Lights flickered across Lumina as control lines snapped free. At the water plant, a shadowy figure watched the disruption unfold on a sleek tablet. Face hidden by a light-absorbing hood, the figure hissed, No. This can't be happening. A command was given, and a cloud of drones converged on the plant's isolated complex. Simultaneously, June's team forced open the vault doors, seizing the emergency manual override. Sparks flew as the city's traffic grid blinked back to life. Autonomous vehicles powered on, the digital signs flickered back in order, and the commutes resumed in an unbroken flow of cautious relief. Kai and Rain, aware the chase was far from over, slipped into the night. They had uncovered a conspiracy that ran deeper than a mere AI malfunction. Somebody had weaponized the city's digital infrastructure to pick off chosen targets. Under the cover of chaos, the dead zone was only the first step in a larger scheme to manipulate, control, and eliminate threats embedded within Lumina. Over the next hours, news broke of the sabotage's origins, traced to a clandestine cabal of corporate interests desperate to maintain oppressive power by weaponizing Lumina's smart systems. Resistance groups rallied behind Kai and Rain, heralding a new fight against the silent wars being waged inside circuits and servers. Beneath the glittering facade, Lumina City had glimpsed its own fragility, a whisper from the dark in the form of a hard reset, forcing its citizens to reckon with the hidden perils of their perfect machine. For more stories, like and subscribe.